All right, folks, welcome to Secular. Well, after the Thanksgiving holiday, it wasn't just the turkey that got pardoned, Logan. It was also Hunter Biden. And let me tell you this right off the bat. The president has pardon power, universal, not Karine Jean-Pierre, not his spokespeople, not people on CNN, not people on MSNBC. And by the way, the president of the United States, President Biden, and whether that's President Trump in the future, who has a lot of pressure on him to issue a lot of pardons on day one. This is a power the Constitution and the following the legal community has given to the President of the United States as Commander-in-Chief. He can both pardon or commute sentences. Pardon means your record is cleansed only on federal issues, so it does not involve state crimes. A commutation means you've served your time. You should be released if you're incarcerated. That crime should kind of no longer be following you around in life. So what I have to hear, what I think is so hilarious about this for the left, and there's not a lot of funny things usually about the pardon power, but the funny thing here was that the left put out until last week, I think, Karine Jean-Pierre, right before Thanksgiving.
Yeah, I feel for her in some ways, because clearly they gave her that message.
What I wonder is, did they even ask Joe Biden? Because we've all talked about how this was a White House that looked like it was being run by someone other than Joe Biden, right? Like it didn't seem like he was actually in charge. And so they thought they could go out there and make these big, huge statements about democracy. And even after he was pushed out of being president, let me tell you the moment Joe Biden said, I don't care about any of your stinking protocols. I don't want to talk to Karine Jean-Pierre.
I'm going to pardon
I don't want to listen to you. You are a bunch of turncoat traitors, and I'm going to do whatever I can do legally, by the way, legally with his position. So be very nervous and cautious, folks, about jumping on some train that's, Hunter Biden this, Hunter Biden that, when President Trump has got immense pressure to pardon both some of the people involved with January 6th.
I think he put that in his statement the last night. I mean, it was on there saying, this kind of opens that door to making this a bit more easy to do when it comes to Hunter Biden.
I would say 100% it opens that door. The reaction, Will, on the left is meltdown, which is interesting. Yeah. The right is just kind of poking fun at Karine Jean-Pierre.
Yeah, Rick Grinnell said, hey, you should flip over to MSNBC, so I did, and it was them trying so hard to spin, and then a few of them just being like, you know what, it is what it is. It
is what it is, Logan, because they just realized they pushed the guy out of being president.
I think so, and then I think you do have that situation. If he had not doubled and tripled and quadrupled down on the pardons, on not pardoning, I don't think anyone would care. I think we would understand it's your kid. I think he thought he was going to lose or not going to be the president.
I thought he had another 4 years.
Yeah.
He thought he had another 4 years.
He thought he had another 4 years, and when it wasn't, and then when it was definitely that Kamala didn't, it's like, okay, at this point, like you said, forced out. I don't necessarily blame him for doing this, whether I agree with the decision or not. I understand the point that you're angry. It is what it is, and we have to move on. But what it does do is lower the bar for pardoning, which I think is interesting. It's kind of like impeachment in that sense, which is if you lower the bar for impeachment for Trump, you'll have to lower the bar for impeachment for any other president. And I feel like it is very similar with the pardon situation here, which is if you lower the bar for your family, you all of a sudden are lowering the bar for pardons overall.
Oh, absolutely. I remember there was a lot of talk when President Trump left office about the idea of a self-pardon. He decided not to do that. But again, this also plays into that. I mean, this gets as close as you can to a self-pardon is pardoning your son. What do you think about this move now that we've explained how it could actually be beneficial to President Trump as he takes office? And I think that's why the American left is freaked out. Joe Biden just set a new lower bar for precedent, and that helps President Trump. We'll be right back on Secular. Some people think champions are born, that it's a title that requires something only a handful can ever possess.
There are times in our lives that we are called, every one of us, to step up and serve a cause greater than ourselves.
Even when the loudest voices in the room say it's wrong, that it can't be done. It can be a difficult stand, but it's one any of us can make, including you.
You can be the change. You can make that difference.
You can be a champion. We cannot do what we do without you.
By becoming a monthly donor, you can become a champion of life.
A champion of liberty, a champion of freedom.
Please join us. Become an ACLJ champion today.
All right, welcome back to Seculo. Do we have some sound bites on this too, Will? I mean, just because it wasn't just Karine Jean-Pierre. I don't want to just beat up on her. It was President Biden too. And listen, I think it was a President Biden imagining at that moment when he was making those comments. One, he didn't even know how the legal system would come out. And I just think at this point, because he was going to lose this power very soon, that if this charges, which most people expected to be kind of a slap on the wrist, you've repaid maybe some fines, no jail time kind of situation. Well, now you're looking at your own party pushed you out. Your own party has been, going nuts on if Donald Trump comes in, he's going to let out the MAGA warriors who are going to take over the country. All those crazy conspiracy theories, right? And I think this actually leads to, what some of these Joe Rogan type characters and others have said, which was, and you've said it, Will. I mean, we've all kind of said to each other, it seemed like when Joe Biden was voting that day, he had a big smile on his face, and he knew that with that big smile on his face, Harris was down in every major poll. And he put on a Make America Great Again hat.
Yeah, I think he had gone definitely rogue in terms of what they expected. There's a lot of even reports.
Did on her twice.
There's lots of even reports that him endorsing Harris was sort of a slap in the face moment because he didn't want out and he thought, well, this is, not going to be what they wanted because maybe the Obamas and the Pelosi's wanted. I think, I forgot who said, I think John Morgan said that on Chris Cuomo's show, that he had heard that's what had happened. So a lot of those talks had happened where he was just bitter about everything that went down.
That's right. And I want to read some tweets for you of how some of the left is taking this news today. Here's the Democrat governor of Colorado. While as a father, I certainly understand President Joe Biden's natural desire to help his son by pardoning him. I am disappointed that he put his family ahead of country. This is a bad precedent that could be abused by later presidents and will sadly tarnish his reputation. Mark Penn, former Hillary Clinton, longtime advisor. Disgraceful pardon. This was not a pardon of just Hunter Biden, but of Joe Biden himself as his son ran a scheme with Joe's brother to shake down adversaries of over $20 million and then didn't even pay taxes on it. And the loot was distributed even to grandchildren. This is yet another of many issues the American public was shamefully gaslighted over. So a Hillary Clinton advisor now sounding more like a right-wing pundit when it comes to that. And then you've got this, Congressman Greg Landsman. As a father, I get it. But as someone who wants people to believe in public service again, it's a setback. So the left is having a meltdown over this. And part of the reason is because they were so adamant by believing what the White House was telling them that he would not issue such a pardon. Here's a supercut of folks on MSNBC. Back through, this is over a span of time, when the White House kept telling everyone there will not be a pardon for Hunter Biden. Here's how MSNBC chose to report this. Bite 2.
Our current president of the United States has so much respect for the law that he has said he would not pardon his son. I mean, again, it's all about the contrast.
President Biden saying, I will respect whatever this jury decides, versus right. Donald Trump after he was convicted on 34 counts, saying the entire system is rigged against him.
Their latest attack has been that Joe Biden has politicized and weaponized the DOJ, right? That was the whole argument around Donald Trump's conviction. And this week, of course, Hunter Biden was found guilty. And Joe Biden has very clearly said he would not pardon his son. He would not commute his sentence. How stark is this difference? I mean, how can Republicans keep making this argument now that Joe Biden has really put it out there? Where's Hunter? Mm-hmm. And he stood there in a courtroom, flanked by his family, and he's accepted his sentence.
He is not pardoning his son. Which he could do. These are federal charges. Right. He is not doing that. He is not doing it because he is living what it means to have a rule of law in this country. Yeah. And it is, I mean, if you want to know if he believes it, you could actually see what is happening with his own son.
I mean, there you go right there. The left, that was Andrew Weissman. Those were the Mueller team guys. They praised him for being, he was like, the most gracious. He's like above
the most American, Captain America.
Yeah, how could you be? And now you know what Joe Biden showed? And you know what, folks? This isn't necessarily bad. There's a reason why the founding fathers put this in our Constitution. It's because there was a high level, and there always has been in politics, and it's happened to Donald Trump, for the legal system and the justice system and the IRS and the other government agencies to come down hard on political leaders that they disagree with. And so was Hunter Biden treated fairly or not? Seems like he was actually treated sometimes better than others because of like the laptop. He got totally, but we all eventually learned that stuff was not real. That he's gone through rehab very publicly. It's been this very kind of interesting public story.
Yeah.
I think at the end of the day, a president is a president, but they are also a father. And when you know that you have that power to maybe help your son stay on the right track this time, why aren't you going to give it to him?
Well, I think
and by the way, I don't want to hear another liberal the entire Trump presidency ever once complain about a single person Donald Trump pardons, because none is going to be like this one.
Well, I think you look at this one, and you can look at some of the ones that Trump did do, and they were some high-level people that were within the Trump world. They may have been his friends.
Incarcerated.
Yes, whether that was Manafort or any of these ones, Roger Stone or whoever it may be, that were
I think was
pardoned over time.
He wanted a commutation.
Not
he wanted
Roger
to keep
Stone.
Fighting, right?
Right. Yeah, I believe there was a commutation there so that he could continue to
Paul
fight.
Manafort in solitary
Right, no,
confinement.
I'm saying
for
that
God's
is-
sakes, folks,
is when-
and he got a pardon, and the left went nuts.
That's what I'm more saying.
Hunter Biden's been painting
this is where we
million-dollar
are.
pictures.
This is where we are in time. So you know what? It is what it is.
This is the law of the land.
But I think if it didn't come down to all of those supercuts you just saw, where there's 10 minutes or so, at least, that people have already put together of them saying there's no chance, and the reason there's no chance he's going to pardon him is because he's so great. He is America's America. He is the greatest of the greatest. If you had not said that, I don't think you would have any issues here. I think people would understand, and people would expect that you would do this.
Well, and I think one thing to also point out, Jordan, is that the left loves to put arbitrary restrictions on elected officials like the President of the United States, but are completely fine with the bureaucracy running amok and doing whatever they want. But when you read the article of the Constitution, the clause that talks about pardons, Article 2, Section 2, Clause 1, we have... he shall have power to grant reprieves and pardons for offenses against the United States, except in cases of impeachment. There's not a ton of over restrictive what kind you can put.
The placement of that.
Yeah.
The first clause under the Constitution establishing the presidency of the United States as commander-in-chief. Clause 1 is the pardon power. That is how concerned our founding fathers were with those who were elected, because let me tell you, you think our politics is rough. It is nothing like it used to be. I mean, not even, it may have gotten close under the Trump years. And of course, we've seen political violence, unfortunately, throughout our history. And that's that liberty versus freedom balance that we constantly have to look at. But the fact is, Article 2, Section 1, gives you the pardon power as president. It's a very important power. And listen, there's going to be a lot of other pardons of people, like you said, Logan, that did much worse things.
Yeah, I'm sure those will come out over the next few weeks. Let's go ahead and take a call real quick. Let's go to David, who's watching on YouTube. David, you're on the air.
Hey, thanks, guys. And listening to y'all really feeds into the comment that I have. We, and I'm talking about from at least right-leaning center on over to the more big C conservatives, we've known all along what the shenanigans would be. And we've been raked over the coals for even thinking such a thing.
Yeah. Right.
Yet,
even just asking how many times they asked about Hunter Biden over and over and over again, because we kind of knew this is where it was going.
But even, I mean, I don't even know if I'd go so far as to say it's shenanigans. This is a constitutional power of the president. The fact the left believed him when he said, I'm not going to pardon my own son, because he has the power to do it.
Did he ever say it after he was not running for re-election?
From the White House. White House did put out statements.
That one time was, did he?
I don't know if he did in person.
That one video was way before, right?
Correct. But even that fact, it's a power of the president under the Constitution. It doesn't say except for family members. It says except for in cases of impeachment. So it gives the Congress that oversight for the political trials. But it's our culture that has created really limitations in saying, oh, he's got to follow the rule of law. He has the power to pardon. So how is that not following the rule of law based in our Constitution?
No, I think, listen, folks, this is a time to support the work of the ACLJ. It's to explain these issues, to get to the bottom of these issues. There's going to be a lot of this under the Trump presidency. And is the left going to forget that they just had a meltdown today and yesterday over the fact that President Biden made this move, and then they're going to act like, what President Trump is doing is fascist and Hitler-esque again? Because we're just going to point right to this one, pardoning your family members, which, by the way, the president has the absolute authority to do it. And Lord knows if I was president of the United States and my son was in a position like that, or child, I'd certainly pardon them. And Logan, I hope if I was in that situation, you were president, you'd pardon me.
I think that's pretty good.
Some people think champions are bored, that it's a title that requires something only a handful can ever possess.
There are times in our lives that we are called, every one of us, to step up and serve a cause greater than ourselves.
Even when the loudest voices in the room say it's wrong, that it can't be done. It can be a difficult stand, but it's one any of us can make, including you.
You can be the change. You can make that difference.
You can be a champion. We cannot do what we do without you.
By becoming a monthly donor, you can become a champion of life.
A champion of liberty, a champion of freedom.
Please join us. Become an ACLJ champion today.
TDS continues in Washington, D.C., as you know, with Trump derangement syndrome. They're letting out on Joe Biden. I don't know if there'll be JBS. There might be. I mean, based off this news, except for the fact that he's an outgoing president.
Yeah, I think we can all move on.
It's like they still figured out a way to make Joe Biden the news of the day by just going after him. If you're listening to a lot of conservatives, you know what they've said, other than saying, it is weird that they lied about this for 2 years, and no one believed any of their lies, and neither did any of us, by the way. If what they were saying, because they were hoping at that time those trials, remember, were supposed to be done.
Yeah, well, they kept asking. I think the reason you have maybe the more conservative-leaning news people asking Karine Jean-Pierre over and over, even though she has said no over and over and over again, is because we knew this is where it was going.
Supposedly she's tried to spin it already.
I think she put out some kind of statement. I have not seen it yet.
Hey, T, will you go look for this? Because she's tried to put out a statement that this does not actually contradict what she had been saying from the podium. And I would love to read how that is possible.
We'll try to find it here. And obviously, they'll probably take questions later today during the press brief.
Conservatives have an honest. Now, I think, this is a power of the president. It's his son. It looked like those cases were going to be settled, and it wasn't going to be an issue. They didn't get settled. He is not going to get another 4 years. He knew he wasn't going to get another 4 years.
Or even a friendly 4 years.
I guarantee you this has been in the works for a very long time. He's just kept the team around it extremely close. But he's president of the United States. You can criticize this all you want, but this is a constitutional power. This is not a legislative power. It's a constitutional power. And hopefully, if you mix in what President Trump is hoping to do, and that's why I want to talk to Jeff in North Carolina. Hey, Jeff, you're on the air.
Hey, guys, thanks for taking my call. I just wanted to say I truly believe it doesn't matter what happens. When Trump starts pardoning some of these Jan 6 folks that absolutely should not be in prison and had their lives destroyed, once that happens, they're just going to spin this as Trump's releasing criminals. Hunter was just a troubled guy with a drug addiction and his father's just trying to help him. That's the way they're going to spin it.
Well, I think they could spin it however they want. The fact is, he was convicted of crimes. People on January 6th were convicted of crimes. And that's what the pardon power is about.
That's right. And also, you have to take into account is that it was his Justice Department. Now, some of it may have started before he was president, but it was his Justice Department that followed this through and ended up charging and getting a conviction of Hunter Biden. But Karine Jean-Pierre, we mentioned that she's already trying to spin it. She was asked on Air Force One. We have a soundbite from this morning. And this is how she kind of lays it out in bite 7. We'll go ahead and take a listen to this. And there is some background airplane noise because they are on Air Force One. But let's go ahead and play bite 7.
You have said repeatedly yourself since the election, the president has said for months, no pardon was coming. I wanted to ask you, could those statements now be seen as lies from the American people? Is there really a credibility issue here given now this announcement?
First of all, one of the things that the president always believes is to be truthful to the American people. That is something that he always truly believes. And if you see the end of his, I assume that you've read his statement, and you look at the end of that statement, and he actually says that in the first line in the last paragraph, and respects the thinking and how the American people will actually see this in his decision making. And I would encourage everyone to read in full the president's statement. I think he lays out his thought process. He lays out how he came to this decision. He came to this decision this weekend. So let's be very clear about that. He says it himself. It's in his voice. He said he came to this decision this weekend. And he said he wrestled with this. And because he believes in the justice system, but he also believes that the war politics infected the process and led to a miscarriage of justice.
So she didn't want to use the term lawfare because that's our term. But
miscarriage of justice, though.
And miscarriage of justice. The idea is, listen, she's put in a difficult spot because she was told by Joe Biden over and over. I don't know why she's even still there. The moment Joe Biden was pushed out, if I was Karine Jean-Pierre, I would say this is
take your MSNBC contract.
This is going to be a mess.
Yes,
because,
absolutely.
This hasn't happened before. He's probably very unhappy, and that means on things like this that aren't going to endanger the American people. I'm not, that he is going to make up his own mind. He doesn't care about what his advisors have to say. This is the end of his political career.
Yeah, you have to remember that she's not the one to blame for the actual messaging point. No. They've given her that messaging point for years. She now has to be the person who has to go clean it up. Unfortunately, that is the role of being the press secretary and having these conversations. Why it's very important.
If I was her, I would have resigned that day and moved on.
Yeah, the day
he told her.
He told her, yeah.
Maybe he told her because she said this weekend. If she knew it this weekend, I would have said, Mr. President, I went out there 25 times. Yeah. I said this for you. That's what you told me. I'm not even disagreeing with your move. I'd like to just hand this over to someone else to take the questions because I'm going to get beat up,
40 days.
Which is going to make you look bad.
Absolutely.
And instead, though, this White House, because they never wanted Joe Biden to be running things, it's like they're upset the one time he actually made a decision.
Right. Go ahead and take some phone calls. Tamara's calling in Indiana on line 1. You're on the air.
Yeah, and so I think that when we talk about these pardoning powers, I can't imagine that our forefathers would have envisioned the situation that we're in today, politically, this environment. And I think that one of the most exciting things about President Trump being reelected is I believe, I hope, and it seems like we're going to see some restoration of our government back to the way that it was intended to be.
Well, listen, I think that the founders did anticipate actually that it would be people very close to the president, including potentially the president himself, who would face these kind of issues. And that's why the idea of a self-pardon has never been held by any court as unconstitutional or wrong. I think that it's also people that are close to the president. And what did we see in the last administration? They held back. So what they did was they waited until President Trump was out of office, and then they started filing federal lawsuits against everybody who was close to him.
It's easy to frame our mind around current day politics and not look back hundreds of years. But remember what they were dealing with, and remember also what they were dealing with in terms of all the other countries that were in upheaval at the same time, that were having revolutions, that were, whether it was in France or anywhere where things were happening specifically to families of people. So I don't know if that's necessarily true. I think in modern politics you can look that way. But even so, if you look even to the last, in our lifetime, plenty of family members, plenty of people.
Roger Clinton was pardoned by Bill Clinton in the final days for drug-related offenses. That was his half-brother. I mean, this is not the first time that a family member has been pardoned. I feel like there's a reason that it's so broad. I feel like the founders, even if they were concerned about that, knew that it was more important to leave it broad than to start putting constraints on the elected executive of the country.
Honestly, you know what I thought?
And let it go.
Too, is when the founders were writing the Constitution, the thought that the president's son would become a legal target for the U.S. system, which was still being put into place about what that was even, would be seen as a political prosecution and thus would be more safe for the country to do away with, regardless of what that was, unless it was like murder or something like that, then it's worse for the Democratic Republic to look like we are going to be like every other country in the world that prosecutes people because of what political family they're associated
Let's
with.
open it up. Day one pardons. I want to see what happens. Let's have some fun.
Day one pardons. I think that could be.
Let's just go down the list. I have a list of people I think, probably. Gary from Washington, you're on the air. Gary, you're on the air.
Under our next administration, be subpoenaed to testify about Joe's involvement in his business dealings from 2014 to 2020.
He would still, obviously there's double jeopardy involved, so he would not. I don't even know if he'd have to seek an immunity deal. He might want one still because it depends on where the questioning wants to go. But here's the truth. There might be House committees and Senate committees that want to do this, but they're going to look to President Trump as well. And I think, you know what President Trump needs to do right now? Get his team in place. If you are someone who voted for President Trump, what you do not want to do is have the House and Senate wasting their time right now on Hunter Biden. Okay? They did the work. They got the information out there. Joe Biden didn't even make it to November as the candidate. Okay? Trump won. He won big. Republicans kept the House. The Democrats thought there was no way the Republicans could, and they did. And Republicans added to their majority. They grew a bigger majority of the Senate than people expected. So Chuck Schumer also gets retired from the majority leader situation. What did we see was the biggest issue in the last Trump administration? What was the one thing, and it's not easy to get out of President Trump all the time, that he thought he did not do right and didn't really fully grasp what he needed to do when he became president, was having all of those people in place. And a lot of those people require Senate confirmation. Republicans control the Senate. Let's get the right people in place.